I would like to, without further ado, introduce some of our panelists now. Additionally, I wanted to highlight that we actually had about 7 or 8 individuals who we were, um, who we were, sorry, 7 or 8 individuals who we weren't interested in participating today, but weren't able to make it for one reason or other. So we'll probably host another panel sometime in the next spring for further discussion. But anyways, on that note, Lucinda, we'll go ahead and start with you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Lucinda Cookut. I was a Navy veteran 9 years. I was an electronic technician specialized in satellite communications. After I got out on a medical discharge, I started attending school with University of Phoenix. Had some interesting experiences with them. But afterwards, I started working with VES to start helping me overcome some of the challenges that I was having during my time with them. And here I am.
Thank you, Lucinda. Shelley, would you like to talk? Share?
Yes. Hi, my name is Shelley. I am a Navy veteran, served for 8 years, and my rate while I was in the Navy was hospital corpsman. I got out last year and tried to pursue my nursing degree, and it seems that it's been not a very happy adventure with a lot of predatory schools and just trying to take advantage of the need for nurses and the fact that veterans get certain benefits. So I just wanted the opportunity to speak on that today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shelley. Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm in Louisiana. I'm here today because of a canine school I went to last year. Lots of issues. Mostly the fact that the veterans were taken advantage of for their GI Bill and lack of training in the school as far as classes were concerned. Very sketchy syllabus, and a few other things that we can discuss as we get further in. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. We actually had the ability or the opportunity this morning to speak with Jessica and a representative's office from her state about these very issues. And it's quite interesting. But let's go ahead. I think my first question for you all is going to be, why don't you tell us a little bit about your actual experience? I'm sorry. Dog's and working from home. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your experience? Jessica, we'll start with you since we had you introduce yourself last. Go into a little more detail about, one, what are your long-term goals career-wise? Why did you choose the U.S. Canine School? And what were some of the experiences you had while there, as well as some of your peers?
I chose the U.S. Canine School because I am a very, very big dog lover. I've rescued most of my dogs that I've had in my life. I also wanted to get into the police aspect of the training as well. I used to be in law enforcement probably about 5 years ago. I spent 2 years doing that. My current status is getting a building to start my business, which is going to be called Mainly Cajun Canine. Shirts, t-shirts, equipment, everything that goes into it. It is very vast at this point, and that's my goal, is to have that business up and running hopefully within the next year, if I can get some of this stuff ironed out. Issues that we had, veterans being taken advantage of at the school as far as work, being promised a paycheck for extra work that was done and never receiving it, manual labor at the facility, which is not even part of the school syllabus, discrimination, bad mouthing veterans behind their backs, using the veterans' GI bills and not there's a certain way that the schools have to do it, is that the veterans go as well as civilians. Now that percentage is not being used properly in that school. So that's one issue that's actually pretty good, is they're not meeting the state requirement for the VA to be giving this person our GI bills.
And what you're hitting on there is the 85-15 rule. So 85%, the school cannot have more than 85% of a program's money coming from GI Bill benefits. And what you guys have seen was them having it 100% covered by veterans, and then bringing in 2 students that were, one was recruited from a local veterans homeless shelter, is that correct? And offered and promised free tuition for manual labor in exchange for manual labor. However, he was
Right.
doing the same work that you guys were doing as far
Yep.
as manual labor is concerned.
Yep.
And then you were also highlighting the fact that, and please forgive me if I'm putting words into your mouth, and tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we heard from you was that they did promise you this
Yes.
ability to be able to train canines, and in the end you would end up with a canine, and you touched on that a little bit in our conversation this morning. Can you highlight a little bit about what happened with one of the dogs you actually have now, that was put out into the police force and was not ready to be elevated to that level, and then as well as your ability to as far as training the dogs?
Okay, basically what the owner of the company is doing is he's releasing these police canines to these departments either early or patching up issues that the dog has to cover it up until the dog goes on the road with these officers. And then there are certain things, it's called a catalyst. It opens up that patch to the dog and it affects them emotionally, socially. I mean, it could be defensively, many, many aspects, the certain things that this dog could do. And if something goes wrong on the road and that dog hurts somebody, it's a big liability issue for the department. So what he's doing is he's charging the departments to bring the dog back to fix it, patching it up again, and then sending it back out on the road with the same issue, and that issue will never go away. So he's making a profit off of these departments for sending these dogs out when they shouldn't be there in the first place.
And then as far as the training you received, can you talk a little bit about that? You said you attended how long?
I had 4 different courses. We had the master trainer course, the trainer's course, and then a single and a dual purpose course. So 4 courses altogether. They not only put us through backwards so he could get the larger amount first for the 6-month course. And then after that, with the other 3 courses, he would stop training the veterans. And that's where the manual labor stuff came into play, is he would make them go do other things, take them off the training, and we wouldn't get any further training with the other handlers or other veterans at that point. So we were basically wasting our GI money going to the school, and we weren't getting the sufficient training that we needed.
Mhm. Yeah. And then what about your housing allowance? How did that work?
He actually had 2 different ways we could live. We could live at the facility upstairs, or we could go to an apartment complex, which he had contracted out in the city neighboring to where the school is. The apartment complex, the rooms would be rented out normally to people for $400 a month. That included, lights, electric, all of that other stuff. But you had roommates. So the one room was $400, but he was charging the veterans $600 a month.
600
Um,
each?
each,
Or one
correct.
normally went
For
for 400.
yes. And for somebody like me, I only was getting 70% off of my GI bill. So that left me with almost little to nothing from my monthly stipend to buy food, pay my other bills, gas money, all that other stuff that I needed to survive every day. So, and he was actually charging students that lived at the facility to the same amount, even though that they lived there. So he was still making a profit off of it.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Lucinda, why don't you go ahead and share with us about your experiences within higher education?
Okay, so I got out of the Navy in 2010, and we were stationed overseas at the time. So we literally were packed up and dropped off in California. No house, no car, no nothing. I had already started my associate's degree with University of Phoenix while I was active duty, and had to pause. Kept getting sent underway and wouldn't be able to have connectivity to do my classes. So it was affecting my academics. So I went ahead and picked up and started finishing out my associates, going on campus while I looked for a new job and transitioned out of the military. Started working. So I was working full time. I was going to physical campus full time, 4 hours in the evenings after work. Was doing my associates in electronic technology. It was general associates of arts, or yeah, associates of arts with the concentration in electronic technology. And I, at the time, had started working for a company. I'd gotten into quality, and decided to go for my bachelor's of science in business management. And in order to transfer in, because of the way that they had their program set up, I was told that I had to, enroll by a certain time so that I could pick up that class and get on that new, I guess, group that they had going through. So I was taking the last class of my associate's degree when I signed up and enrolled into my bachelor's program. Well, because I did that, it was not explained to me that I essentially, according to University of Phoenix, forfeited my associate's degree because I enrolled into a bachelor's program. But even though academically and on my student profile and everything, it shows me enrolled in the associates, it shows my program 100% complete, I was never issued my associate's degree. I filed appeals with the school and was never given it. But I was in my bachelor's program at the time, and I was just working and school. I was just trying to survive and just try to get through my bachelor's. Went through my bachelor's degree, got that. And during my bachelor's program, they kept changing the concentrations associated with my degree program. And as a result, I kept having to take classes that didn't actually apply to my program. I would have to sign a paper and shift my program. So I wasted a lot of my GI Bill on that. And I finished my bachelor's. I was so, super excited, super stoked, a lot of hard work. Started my master's program.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes,
So with the shifting of program requirements, you were told your degree would require certain requirements, you would take those, and then that would change
yes.
as you were moving forward with your degree. So did it increase time to attainment? Did you
Yes.
still finish on time? Okay.
Yeah, no, it increased my time, but it also increased the classes that I had to take. And I took a few classes that didn't apply to my final degree because they were shifted to a different, like to business admin versus business management. They kept breaking it up into different kind of concentrations at that time.
Okay. All right. So once you graduated.
So I got my bachelor's, and then I started into my master's program. Wanted to get into project management. And about that time, I started really having a lot of problems with my service-connected disabilities. And I had applied for, disability accommodations, had done all the legal paperwork, and had got it approved and signed by the school, had a person assigned to me to review my stuff. And essentially, I ended up having some problems. I exercised my rights afforded to me under that program and under my specific accommodations. But the way that the teacher that I had, they were switching to a new online platform, and there was a lot of problems with it. And we were the first group to go through that online platform. And the way the teacher submitted my grade, the system did it to where when they submitted my final grade, I got penalized and it docked me a full letter grade. And as a result, I ended up on academic probation. And again, I put in several appeals and requests for review, and they would never adjust it. And I had to pause my master's program at that point because it was where I would have to take one class, wait 6 months, take another class, and then if I had my GPA at that class, then I would have to repeat the other class, and it was just a nightmare. And I was running out of my GI Bill benefits, and so because of my health problems at the time, I just decided to call it quits. And several months later is when I found out about the student loans. I got a thing from student loans saying, hey, you have these student loans, they're going to be paid, up for payment soon. And then I was kind of going through that. What happened about the similar time of that was I didn't get my VA disability payments. And I called to find out what was going on and found out that University of Phoenix had pre-certified me for several classes that they had enrolled me into that I never took. And because they pre-certified me for all those classes and then didn't do anything to say that I actually didn't take those classes, VA paid money to them for those classes. And then when they said, no, she didn't actually take these classes, then because those benefits were paid on my behalf, the VA took them out of my disability payments. And I had to go through 2 rounds of auditing through the VA to try to find out which classes I actually took, where the overpayments were, how much they were for, and had to go through it was almost a year, I think, to get University of Phoenix to pay back the portion that had been overpaid to them. But VA had already recouped some of that, and I never got that back. I was able to get the payment stopped and was put on a temporary payment plan until they were able to do the audit. But I never recouped that money that I lost in my VA disability payments. And so there were a couple other things too that happened with that.
Lucinda, can I ask another question? I'm so
Yes, ma'am.
sorry that happened to you. Can you talk a little bit about how you were paying for school? My understanding is you were using TA, you were using your GI Bill top up, and then you were also using Yellow Ribbon. Yet
Yes, ma'am.
ended up with student loans.
That's what I was trying to figure out what I needed to cover next. So when I joined the military, I joined in 2001 before 9/11. And so when I enlisted with a bonus and with the Navy College Fund. And after post 9/11, any service members who had enlisted with the promise of that cap, that top up for the original MGI Bill, which I think the benefits at that time was like 19.8, was the maximum payout for that before post 9/11. So that was a significant chunk of money, and pretty much they would do that as a kicker to the current post 9/11 tuition caps. And in addition to that, I was also receiving Yellow Ribbon to offset the cost of the tuition, so that way I was supposed to not have any out-of-pocket expenses. So unlike most of the average students who were just getting the payout for post 9/11, they were getting that plus an extra $500, I believe it was, per tuition credit with the Navy kicker, and they were getting Yellow Ribbon on top of that. And I incurred student loans for the entire period that I was enrolled with them. And then I recently found out about 6 months ago when I was looking at my remaining benefits that while I was active duty, I was using the tuition assistance program and had used some of my GI Bill benefits at that time to cover the difference. And then they had taken student loans out while I was active duty that I never knew about.
And how much
So
did you end up with in student loans?
I believe at the end of it, it was about 58,000 in student loans.
For 4 years of school?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I thank you for sharing your story. We had Brian join us. Brian, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself really fast? Thank you for joining us. I know you've had a busy day at work today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Brian Whitehead. I went to ITT Tech in 2006 to 2008. Um, yeah, that was an interesting experience. Um, I think more of mine was more about the way the classes were set up, and a lot of it was more. So we had teachers that didn't have experience in their field. I went for computer and electrical engineering, and um, I think one of my classes was programming. We had a guy that, and he told us when he came in, like, this is my first time teaching it. It's not my background. Um, and within half the semester, he changed the way the classes were being graded. So everybody started off with A's and B's and ended up with like B's in the middle of the class because he started grading it different. So we just had a lot of experience, or I personally had a lot of experience with inexperience. And, they tell you when you come into ITT Tech, like, hey, we're going to get everybody jobs. You're going to, make, 40, 50,000 starting off. Like, we have job placement, and none of that stuff happened. I remember, I want to say like my last semester or two, they had me apply for a loan to pay for my student loans because they said that I wasn't going to be able to be covered. But what they told me to do instead of applying for the loan by myself, they were like, get somebody has bad credit to apply for it, and then we can get you a different type of loan. So I did what they said, got the loan, and it was just a lot of things that didn't make sense. Um, and this was before the post 9/11 GI Bill. I ended up with my associates from them, but if I could tell you that I knew anything from what I learned, I would be lying. Like it wasn't wasn't very memorable classwork, and even when you went and complain and say, hey, this teacher doesn't know anything, or we feel like we're in class and we're not. Like we would have several students go in and be like, hey, I'm just not getting this. Like, we had maybe one very good teacher out of numerous teachers throughout teaching us like electrical engineering. It was rough. Um,
And how much, so then did you end up, because of the loans you took out, were they private loans and not federal like federal loans?
the original ones I was taking out was federal, and then they ended up putting me on private loans for like the last two. I ended up owing between the two like 42,000 off a 2-year degree. Um, and I mean that's ballooned up. The private ones, I never even touched those because the interest rate was just, it was astronomical, and it was a very bad experience. It actually made me not go back to school for a good little while because I didn't want help. I was like, I'd rather just find regular jobs.
Did you, I'm really sorry for your experience. Did you end up going back to school?
Um, I
Or
went back at one point for electrician at a different school, and that wasn't a bad experience. I just ended up getting a job that I didn't have the time to finish. And then last year, I started taking classes again at Strayer. So, still got to educate yourself as best as possible. But I mean, it just seems like a lot of these schools that are for profit really, it's more of a preying on what you can provide them than it is about really giving you an education that'll like sustain you going forward.
yeah, I'm really, I'm sorry about that, but you are definitely persistent and
Yeah,
keeping up with that. And so can,
got 4 kids.
I understand. I have 3, lots of hungry mouths to feed, right? um, Shelly, I'm going to go to you next, but Brian, Jessica, and Lucinda, how many of you are working now? Jessica, I believe you are in the field you originally went to school for. Did the education you received at the schools help you get the jobs you were hoping to in the career field you wanted to?
No,
Not even. Yeah.
really.
No, not for you either, Jessica.
I'm working at a convenience store for minimum wage right now, just to, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have not been able to do that for myself.
Oh,
I did not get a job doing myself. I did quality up until about a year ago, and currently I'm not able to work in that field because of my service-connected disabilities, but I can't get any assistance from voc rehab from the VA because I have my degree, even though I've never been able to get a position with it. So I have a barrier to employability, but no barrier to employability because of my degree.
Very, very similar situation. So, I had a federal job for a little while, but right now I'm working in a construction style field as a front desk person. So, I mean, none of the stuff I've done has been anywhere close to what my degree was
Yeah, I worked myself pretty high in the quality realm, but that was only because I worked my tail off and took every opportunity I could.
Thank you. Shelly, last but not least, I know your story is slightly different than the other three on here. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your experience in higher ed and also the good news about what's coming in the spring of 2021.
Thank you. So I'd say my issues probably started in 2019, right after I got out the military. So National University had actually approached me because I was working in San Diego at the Naval Medical Center as a hospital corpsman. And so they're just kind of going around and telling all, the hospital corpsmen that, that they have pre-licensure BSN programs and that it would be accelerated. It would only be 2 years, that our classes would be month to month. And so we'd still be able to get our full GI Bill benefits, but we'd only be taking one class a month. And at the time, I had already gotten a position working in a medical field. So I decided, okay, well, I mean, that doesn't sound too bad because I'd be able to work a full-time job in the daytime and then go to class at nighttime. And so, the process was fairly easy as far as signing up for them. And so I didn't see the red flag as far as how fast it was to get into the school versus the school that I'm starting in the spring. But because they literally had an office in the hospital, people found them to be reputable. And so I signed up and I started, my classes in February. Everything was going good until I believe it was around August timeframe. I saw that a lot of the classes that I needed, they didn't have them. And so I'd have to wait between 6 months to a year. And so I started changing around my schedule, and I would always email my academic advisor because at the time I didn't know who was actually in the VA office. And that's not information that they ever gave me. I didn't find out that information until I started having problems with them in the spring of 2020. So I changed my classes around. Everything was fixed. I was still getting my payments. Then December timeframe hit, and I think I was taking like a micro class. And so I already knew at the time that because of the holiday season coming up, that I would be missing parts of my GI Bill housing payment, which I was fine with because I was still working. But then it came around January 1st, still hadn't gotten a payment. And so I was calling the office, I wasn't getting an answer. I was sending emails to my academic advisor, still wasn't getting an answer. And so I waited maybe about 2 more weeks and I was like, okay, well, let me call the VA instead since the school's not responding. And so the VA said, oh, well, your school said that you weren't taking the correct amount of credits, so you're not getting a payment. But I was actually taking the amount of credits required to be full-time. And so I asked the VA, how can I fix this? And so they, gave me all the certification ID numbers, and they were basically saying whoever certified your classes certified them for 10 weeks instead of, I think it was supposed to be for 8 weeks to get the payment. And so then I finally found out where the VA office was at. I brought all the paperwork and I told them, you guys need to fix this because now I'm not getting a housing payment for 2 months. So they said that they fixed it. I followed up with the VA in February, and I found out that in the process of them trying, in the process of the school trying to fix what they were supposed to fix, they certified and said that I didn't take any classes for, I believe they said it was September through December. They said I wasn't in classes, but I was actually in class the entire time because I had all my transcripts. And so at this point, I was very upset and very fuming mad because at that time, because of my service-connected disabilities, I was no longer able to work. And so my GI Bill benefits and my disability was the only form of payment I was receiving. And so I drove up to the school and I showed them that they didn't certify the classes correctly. They were telling the VA that I withdrew from classes that I in fact had completed and that I wanted them to fix it. And the supervisor didn't even know how to fix the issue. She seemed confused when she was talking to the VA official, when the VA official was telling her what the procedures were that were outlined in the certifying official handbook, which I read myself. And I was like, well, this is pretty self-explanatory. So how do you not know how to certify these classes or fix the errors? So I had to apply for a waiver. I had to keep calling the VA until they had me talk to the highest official there. And so then they went into the system and they reversed all the debt. I think it was like 8,000. And I was fine with that. I was like, okay, well, I don't have any debt. And then maybe about 2 months later, I got a letter from the VA saying that although the debt was waived, they were now taking my GI Bill. And so at that time, I had already made plans to transfer into a nursing program. And then I was like, well, if I don't have a GI Bill, then how am I going to pay for the rest of nursing school? Then in April, I got another letter and they were saying that they paid for classes in February, and I had told the VA that I had withdrew from the school the same day that I spoke with them about the other issues. And it looks like National went ahead and certified me for classes that I wasn't even in, and they went ahead and collected the payment. And so then now I had to apply for another waiver to have that debt removed because I wasn't even in class at that point. And so then National sent another bill to me saying that I owed them for those classes, even though I never stepped on campus for those classes. And so I had to file a BBB complaint, and finally they finally dropped those fees. But as a result, I didn't have a GI Bill. And so I had to switch to Voc Rehab. And so then this was like right before the pandemic hit, like right in March. And so I found another school, did my research, spoke with, the academic advisor. And I was like, okay, 13 months is not too bad for a vocational nursing degree if I can switch the following year to BSN. And so, I asked all the correct questions. I spoke with the financial aid office and I asked them, their procedures for certifying. And they just made it seem like everything was good at the school. And this is Concord Career College. I'd probably say right about July is when we started having issues. It's almost as if the teachers who were teaching had no experience teaching at all. All they knew was how to be nurses, but they didn't know what the new requirements were by the Board of Nursing for the classes. They didn't know what to teach. And so I would constantly send emails to the nursing director and tell her, this program is not living up to the expectations that, that they promised the veteran students. And the nursing director would pretend that she would fix the problem, but then the next problem would happen a couple months later. And when it got to the point where over 50% of the class was failing because we weren't getting the instruction that we were supposed to get, one of the instructors told us, oh, well, that's not my fault. You need to speak to the higher ups. I was told, to give you an exam on this, even though it's not material that you were taught. And so I asked the nursing director, where in the policy does it state that they're allowed to test students on materials that the lecture doesn't cover? She was saying it was the same topic. It doesn't matter that it was based on pediatrics versus adult health. And at that point, I became very angry and upset, and told them that I wanted to speak to their campus president because at that point I was very angry and very, I was like so enraged that I wanted to drop the program, and I was already 6 months in and I only had 6 months left. So I spoke with the campus president and I kind of detailed all the grievances I had. I showed her proof of every single email that I sent, you know, asking for changes to be made. And through her conversation, it just kind of seemed like, oh, well, I didn't know about that, but I apologize. Oh, if you stick around, you know, a while longer, you know, you'll see changes. And then I asked her, why would I stay there for 6 more months? And by then it will be graduation date and you guys will have recouped $38,000 out of my GI bill. I mean, out of my Chapter 31 benefits. And so after she spoke with my voc rehab counselor, you know, she said, okay, well, we can make, you know, these small changes if that will make you feel more comfortable. Not even 72 hours after I returned to campus, we were told that we had an exam, but we didn't find out the notification until 10 o'clock at night. And by then most people were sleeping and everyone flunked the test. And so at that point, that was enough for me. I just went ahead and put in my withdrawal and I told them I wanted nothing to do with them. I put in a Yelp review. And then a couple days later, they called and tried to bribe and ask, oh, well, you know, what can we do, you know, to get you to come back? You know, I saw that you're starting a new university in the fall. Is there any way for you to come back to Concord? And I pretty much told them no, that I had no plans to return and that I didn't really appreciate that they were trying to like feed me more promises to get me to drop a school that I already got accepted into. And I haven't heard from them since. But now I got a letter from the VA saying that because the school didn't withdraw me in time, I now owe them $3,000. So.
All right, well, Shelly, let's have you talk to our team when this is all over and we'll see if we can help you with that. But I'm very sorry for that. Can you tell us about what's in your horizon? Really fast, because we have questions for the rest of the panelists.
Well, despite everything that happened with National and Concord, I did get accepted into Azusa Pacific University for the spring with a scholarship offer of $30,000. And so I'm very excited to be starting there, although I have to get a bachelor's in allied health before I can apply for nursing. I'm much more comfortable going there with how supportive they've been so far, always checking in, always making sure that I know what classes that I'll be taking and how to go about speaking with the financial aid office and the veteran office and making sure that everything is set in place for January. So I'm very excited. Although I wasted about $15K out of my voc rehab, I'm happy that voc was very understanding of everything that happened with Concord, and they're still willing to pay for the bachelor's and the master's.
That is great. And Azusa is one of the top nursing programs in that area. So congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
Having come from Southern California, I know the various nursing programs, and I do know that they are very well respected. So I'm very excited for you.
Thank you.
And you are clearly motivated and will do, I'm sure, without a doubt, exceptionally well. I have a question for all four of you, and we'll do it kind of like, what is that, speed dating kind of thing, where I'm going to ask you a question and then you'll give me your answer within like a minute or two, just so that we have time for questions at the end as well. So my first question for all of you is, if you were to go back again to see all of this around, yes, lightning round. Thank you, Anthony. If you were to go back and do this all over again, what is one thing you wish you would have known before making the decision?
I'd probably say that to know when to recognize the red flags, as far as it being very easy to get into a school, because getting into Azusa wasn't easy. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of things that had to be put in place before I even got accepted into the school, versus national university basically recruited me out of a hospital. And I barely had to do any paperwork to get into that school. I'd probably say to know the red flags as far as what the process is for getting into a school, that, you know, if you feel like it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
That's a really great point. Jessica, do you want to go next?
I wish I would have done more research about the company before I actually went through the classes, because now that I've been through these classes, I've found that there are so many other dog training schools that could have given me the same thing that I got through US Canine with the same outcome, with probably 10 times less hassle than what it was. So
In the company. Brian?
I would say for me, it's knowing what to vet and what things to look for, like in terms of accreditation. Um, like with ITT Tech, I didn't do a lot of research. You know, at the time, Google wasn't quite what it is. It wasn't as big now, and even the VA didn't have like some of the tools they have where you can kind of look at the graduation rates and stuff like that. So I think I would just do more research and really find a school that fits what I'm looking for and actually has like, even if it's not the highest national rating, some kind of rating, because ITT Tech wasn't even on the radar for anything. So, you know, I just would do more research on my own.
Thank you. And Lucinda, we'll end with you on this question, then I'll start with you on the next question.
Okay, so I would say that research is great, but I would rely more on reviews and personal experiences, because I had heard horror stories and I was so afraid of, ending up with a degree that was just a piece of paper. And so I really did my due diligence, and, I checked for accreditations. They had representatives at the Navy College office. They're on the VA website. As far as, you would think if it's under the VA listings of approved programs and degrees and schools and stuff, it's like you kind of get a false impression that, okay, well, they're accredited and they got reps at the college office and they're on the VA website as an approved program in school. Surely they've met all the requirements to prove that it's a degree that's worth the value. And with University of Phoenix, it's a very mixed feeling, because I had some really great instructors there and I made a lot of really great connections through that school. But at the same time, it was really disappointing because the way that they conduct themselves as an academic, institution really discredits and does a disservice to the work and stuff that the students are doing for their degree. And I feel like I can't even I'm proud of it because I know what I did for it, but I don't feel like I got the value of all the stuff for it. So I would go more on people's individual, experiences versus just accreditations and stuff. In quality, I learned it's very easy to buy certifications and, be able to front requirements, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the experience you're looking for.
Thank you. So we're going to skip the middle question and we're just going to go to the last question because we saw another question from one of our audience participants. So I'm going to do this question and then we'll go to them. You have a number of people who are listening and hearing your stories and who influence policy on a regular basis and are looking for ideas in the new year. As they're walking away from today's conversation and hearing from you, what is one thing that you want them to take away with, and one thing and within that, like what could they consider as far as policy recommendations for next year for the next Congress? Lucinda, we'll start with you first. Let's keep it like
Okay.
quick, like, again, we're gonna just do lightning round responses.
So if I honestly feel like if a student getting GI Bill benefits has enough benefits to cover their program, if an institution is receiving Montgomery GI Bill, that student should never have any debt or any expenses at all to walk away with that 4-year. If it's an undergraduate degree, certificate, or program, and you have enough benefits to cover that program, there should never be any cost incurred to that veteran.
Yeah, the post
I
9/11
agree.
covers a lot. Shelley.
I'd probably say that if there could be a policy put in place to make tougher requirements for, I guess, individuals to become certifying officials at schools, because it seems like the course that they go through is not really that in depth. And it's very important that these people know what they're doing, because they can cause veterans to become homeless if their only primary source of income is the GI Bill. Like, I almost became homeless behind a school not certifying my things correctly for 2 months, and then meeting with the representative, and they didn't have a clue what they were doing. I had to call a VA official at the region for them to tell them how to do their job. There should be tougher requirements for them to become certifying officials so that things like this don't happen again.
Thank you. Jessica, and then Brian will end with you.
I'd like to see a specific requirement list for Congress to go through with these schools and compare them with the VA together, as far as their accreditations, their lists of classes, all of that other stuff. That way, a lot of this here and there, and all that red tape that you have to go through that we're going through now doesn't happen.
So a stronger approval process on the front end for schools? Yeah. Okay. Brian.
Well, my answer was similar to Jessica's, so we'll go a different route. I think they have to overall do a better job of streamlining the process. It's from the VBA to the actual schools. A lot of times there's a huge disconnect in like what's really necessary for a veteran to get into school and the process of like what all is going on. A lot of times going through the process, there's a lot of gaps in it. Like I'll say when I signed up with Strayer last year, I had to sign up for. They wanted me to do the FAFSA, but they also wanted me to sign up for a promissory note for a loan, and I'm like, if I'm using the GI Bill, why do I need that? So it's a lot of there's a lot of gaps in the process that we don't understand, and I think because we don't have like a guideline of what our roles are and what we're doing, when we get to the point of actually signing up, we're doing extra stuff that we don't need to do. Because I didn't necessarily need a promissory note, but that was something they pushed me on. So the VA needs more of a rule guide to say, hey, these are things that you can and what you should and should not do. Because, you're just doing what you feel like you have to do to get into school. And you're going to say, hey, if they're not going to steer me wrong, but a lot of these colleges don't really care as long as they get money off of it. So to them, it was like, hey, I got you to sign up for this extra loan to go on top of, the GI Bill. So I think there needs to be more of a streamlined approach to it, to where a lot of these schools can't scam you because they're not able to do extra stuff over top of the GI Bill, because again, it pays for everything. So why is there an extra need for anything else?
So helping educate potential students on the processes, like what to be aware of, what to see, and then also create like streamlined requirements for colleges and universities as they're supporting students. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, great. We did have a question from Kulu who asked, did any of you use the VA counselor service? And if so, did you find them helpful and knowledgeable about schools, programs, benefits? Shelley said she was not aware. How many of you were aware of this?
I was aware, but every time I tried to apply to get somebody to talk to me, I couldn't get through the application process. I was told online that my information was not in the system.
I will say at ITT Tech, I had no clue. Strayer actually had a person, but to say the person was knowledgeable would be a huge exaggeration. Like they did nothing extra, or he said he was a VA rep, but or like a a veterans rep, but there was nothing that distinguished that. There was no, I mean, there was nothing for me to know what exactly his role was and what he was supposed to be doing. So.
Thank you. And I think also there are that I know that's a newer process as well, one that's been around for I think fewer years than some of you guys had started on that process, and it's only in regional areas. We would love to see that expanded, that program expanded, because I do think that they do a lot of good work where I've seen them. Do you have any last things you would like to, again, we have about 6 minutes, and for participants, thank you so much for joining today. We have probably around 5,000 students in our database that we have helped since we've been around, and the number does keep growing. And so there are definitely challenges that we're hoping to continue to address in a new Congress. But let me go ahead, and I'm not seeing questions from anyone else, so let me go ahead and we'll end it with the last 1 minute final note you have to share with participants before we close out today.
I actually have one more thing I'd like to say. As far as like the congressional stuff, I had an issue with getting a notice from the IG office of a complaint that I made saying that they weren't qualified to take care of my issues. I think that's something else that they need to be more aware of as well, because it seems like my issues are important to me. It should be important to them as well, and they should take care of it regardless of what they think their criteria is.
I'd say for me, I would like to see some changes with the VA because I feel like, yes, these benefits are paid on our behalf, but anytime there's an issue or overpayments or anything, the veteran is automatically penalized for that. They automatically hit our benefits and everything that, in a lot of cases, especially if you're receiving disability benefits, that's you're living off of that. You depend on that. And then you have to go through all of this process to prove, your side before, you're actually, there should at least be like a buffer period where it's saying, hey, we received this notice. You have this period to address this before we start, docking your, or, there just needs to be a change with that. Because in most cases, we just get docked and then find out afterwards, and then we're scrambling to do damage control.
That's actually one of our top policy priorities for the new Congress. So thank
Awesome.
you. And also, we got a law that's getting ready to pass. Shout out to, I think Julian is still on there. Some of our HVAC and SVAC peer colleagues on the Hill are getting a law through. Knock on wood. I don't have wood around me. I have metal. This week, hopefully. Simon's also on or was on. So that will address some of the overpayment issues related to schools and who ends up paying those overpayments. So shout out to them, guys. Shelley.
I don't know if Congress has control over this, but I feel like for students that are applying for forbearance to have these loans that were taken out in their name that they never knew about, or taking out loans because of the school's mistakes, I feel like it shouldn't be such a hard process to be able to have those waived. I know recently, I think the court decision said that they were denying forbearance. And so it's like, oh, well, I owe $8,500 with no GI Bill and no means to pay it back. And these schools get to continue on and get to continue to screw over more students and make them take out student loans when they mess up their certifications. I feel like there should be more of an easier process, especially if the student has proof to show that there has been wrongdoing and that the school has admitted wrongdoing. I feel like it shouldn't be so hard to have those student loans erased, because I don't want to have to pay for those student loans, but it looks like I'm going to have to pay for them out of my scholarship offers, because I would rather have no debt than what I have right now.
Congress can help with that. And I know a lot on here have actually worked on that exact issue, but we'll continue to push that forward, work on that as well. Brian, again, last but not least.
I would say that for me, I would like to see more of a approach to allow veterans. I mean, we all want to better ourselves and better our lives. We serve this country, and then we come out, and it's really difficult navigating benefits in a whole. But the education part, because it's something that, hey, a lot of us went to school, went to the military to do, which was, hey, let me be able to pay for school and things like that. Make it less of a hassle to get these things done. Um, I'm fighting with vote rehab right now, and it's a struggle, and it is time consuming, and it's frustrating because a lot of times you do your part and you should be eligible, but they'll deny you. Uh, I got denied because I got a job, not because I'm in a job that is a better position for me, but literally just because I'm working right now. So, and my disability doesn't hinder me from working. And that doesn't show the struggles I have with the PTSD, with the shoulder injuries I have, and things like that. It just shows that, hey, you're making money, so you're not eligible. So I think it needs to be a lot more um, guidelines towards what qualifies us and what doesn't. Because I think a lot of times they find the quickest reason to say no, and it should be more yeses than the nos that we get.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on. We've seen a number of veterans similar to yourself who are not making as much money as you could. Could you get a degree? Many who are making in minimum wage, who, if they could go and get their degree, would be able to make a lot more money and not have to rely on other benefits as they move forward. So I do think that remains a priority of ours, and I think it's a good way to end today. Thank you, all four of you, for participating, for sharing your stories. Those are very much very powerful. I'm so sorry that each of you have had the experiences you have, but here's to brighter days. And thank you for the participants who've joined us today. Please feel free to reach out to us should you have any questions. Thank you, everyone.